Hi there. Today I'm going to be chatting with you about SEO and the very basics of SEO in order for you to get started. I'm going to try to keep away from most of the techie stuff and really rely on things that you might be able to do on your own. My name is Yasmin Robles with Robles Designs, where we create drill-worthy websites and brands for entrepreneurs who are hell-bent on taking over the world. We do this not just by creating pretty sites, but we also put some thought and strategy behind the website so that you can get those visitors and turn them into paying clients. Before we dive into SEO and the three basic things that you should keep in mind, make sure that you understand what on-site SEO is versus off-site. So on-site are things that you can do within your site, whether that is your developer or you or writing content, versus off-site, which is getting featured, getting people to link back to your site, that kind of thing. So there's a big difference, and today we're going to be talking mostly about on-site SEO. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you are watching or listening, and share this with one person. It would be super helpful, even if it's just your BFF, your business friend, best business friend, and that would be so great if you could just share it with them. And if you find this content valuable, please make sure to visit roblessdesigns.com, leave a comment on the blog post, or let me know in the comments area, wherever you're listening, what else you would like to learn. So the very first thing that you should keep in mind, and really if you don't do anything else, it's the one thing that you should keep in mind for your entire site, and that is the user journey. Think about how when I am visiting your site, you want to make sure that I can get from point A to point B, that I can get my tasks done, that whatever goal I had for coming to your site is going to be completed, and that it is as little annoying as possible, as fast as possible, and that I can get in and out. A few things to consider when looking at your user experience on the website. Number one is, how easy is it to read the site? So what I've seen is some really great, amazing brand designers. They use a gray text on a white background, and often that is a bit hard to read, especially if the text is even smaller than it should be. It's really hard to read on a site, especially for those that have some kind of visual disability. So you want to make sure that the contrast is high, that the text is large enough to be read, that it is not some funky font that when it gets really small, it's hard to read. You want to make sure that the information that you're providing is super easy to get to versus people squinting and trying to read through your site. And make sure that there's no such thing as embedded text on an image on your site. I can link to some of the additional videos or podcasts that I've done on this, but make sure that if I were to download the image, that the text wouldn't come with it. So that means that if you need to change the headline or the text that is on an image, you actually have to go and create it and then upload it. That is a bad thing. So the reason that's bad is that if the image were to be broken or just not load because the user is on a bad connection, then they don't get the message that you are trying to really give them. And I see this a lot on DIY sites. So make sure that on your website, it's easy to read and that there are no images with embedded text in them. You can have images with text laid over, coded over. Just make sure that it's still easy to read, because that can still cause some readability issues. But you want to make sure overall that the image does not have the text embedded actually on it. Another thing that I continue to see about user experience is that people have pop-ups on their site, and pop-ups are great, they convert really well. But the problem with pop-ups is that if I land on your site and it pops up in my face immediately, that is a really bad user experience, especially if I'm trying to get to a content or see a product that I really want to purchase. Another thing that I have seen go wrong with pop-ups is that it's not just that it's not on a timer or a percentage of scroll, it's that it's on every single page, and even if I exit out of the pop-up, I will still get the pop-up if I go to the next page. So this has happened to me on some e-commerce websites done by DIY e-commerce websites, and they have a great product. I go on the home page, I get the pop-up, and then I click on a category page to see all of their awesome products, and I get the same pop-up again, and I continue to exit out of the pop-up, and every single step, almost up to the point of checking out, I get that pop-up. And if I had really not wanted, maybe was waffling on the product, then I probably would have left the site because it was just really, really annoying. And the only reason I ended up purchasing from that site is because somebody really, really recommended that particular product. But if there hadn't been that recommendation from a friend, I probably would have just left the site and gone to another one to purchase from them. Make sure that your site is mobile friendly, and I don't know why I'm still saying this and why I'm still seeing a lot of websites that do not have a mobile friendly version. And whether or not your site can be fluid and just kind of rework itself depending on the platform that you're using, I still see sites that have no mobile version, so I have to continue to zoom in and out in order to get the information that I want. Sometimes all I want is the clinic's contact information or their actual address so I can type it in, and I have to pinch in and out in order to get to what I need, and that is just a horrible user experience. Google also will just ding you for it. Nobody wants to be on a site like that. And if I'm on my phone and I find that your site is not mobile friendly, I'm likely to just bounce back and go to the next person on the list, on the results list. And finally, when it comes to SEO and the user experience, you want to make sure that I, as a user, can get to where I need to go and complete my goal in as few steps as possible. So if you are an e-commerce site and I Googled your product, I found it as #1 on the list, which congratulations if it's #1, and then I get to your site, but it's like 15 steps to check out and I don't have the right product information. It's not in the description of the product. I'm not really sure when you're gonna ship it out. I have all of these questions. It's likely that I'm just gonna bounce back to the next person on the results list, and Google will notice that and they will start thinking, well, although your company is coming up as the top ranking one, it might not actually be serving the people coming to Google to search. So we're gonna start bumping you down because obviously there's something going on. And this is also the same thing for like bloggers or any type of site where if I search something and I see you as #1, I go in and let's say I'm looking for an answer on how to bake an apple pie, and I click on you and you have great SEO because you're coming up as #1, but there is no recipe. It's almost like the article doesn't even pertain to what I was looking for when I typed in apple pie recipe. Then I'm gonna bounce back, go to the next person on the results list, and Google will see that and start dinging you for it. If they do not want to display results where people go in, say this is not what I was looking for, and then bouncing out. As a side note, user experience is really, really important with SEO because Google is watching you, watching your site, they're watching everyone. So you want to make sure that no user is coming to your site and leaving really, really frustrated. You want to make sure that they have a really great time on your site, that they can accomplish their goals and not bounce back to the results page, because that's just going to show Google that although you might be working on keyword research and all of this great stuff, the structure of your site might be great, but you're not providing what the person searched for, the answer that they wanted. So they're going to start really dinging you for that, or you annoyed them so much that they just left your site, and Google's going to see that. And you want to make sure that you're providing the best user experience, even if you don't do any keyword research or anything else, that your site is easy to navigate, it's easy to go through, it's not annoying, and that it's providing value. The next thing you should keep in mind with your SEO, especially when you're starting out or thinking about redoing your site, is the platform that you're going to choose. So I work with WordPress, Shopify, and Squarespace. And I used to love, if it was all about SEO, it would have been WordPress. But the other two have actually been picking up their game when it comes to SEO and providing a lot more options. And so it really depends on you in a couple of things. It depends on how much time you have, how tech savvy you are, or your budget. So the main difference is that some of them are self-hosted and others are hosted by the company. And so, for example, Squarespace, their admin area is a lot easier to use or it feels a lot easier to use for certain clients of mine versus WordPress. And the thing that it ultimately comes down to is if you have the time to learn the tech and you're really gung-ho about SEO, and so you have time and you want to learn the tech, then you can go to WordPress because it's a really great platform for that versus Squarespace. But if you are low on budget to have someone do it for you, you're low on time, and you're just not very tech savvy, it might be a different platform that will help you. And here's why. I have had clients who have this amazing WordPress site, all the bells and whistles. Their offerings are great. Everything's beautiful, well designed, but they know that in their marketing strategy, blogging and keeping their keywords up to date and all that stuff that goes into it is really important. But they don't do it because they are overwhelmed when they log into WordPress. They see all these notifications and these plugins and options, and they decide that maybe I'll just do it later. And a year goes by and they haven't been blogging at all. And that's gonna not really help them, right? Versus I've had clients who have then switched to a simpler, not simpler, but like Squarespace, which is a bit more user-friendly. And what has helped them is that it's so user-friendly that, yeah, they're like knocking out all of these blog posts and focusing on their keywords without worrying about the tech or anything like that. They don't need to keep things updated. And so they are starting to rank better because the tech is it's not blocking them. Even though they are the least tech-savvy person in the world, they can still log in, put up a blog post, and be done with it. So ultimately, when it comes to choosing a platform, yes, I still think that if you have the tech knowledge, the time, or the budget to hire someone, I would go with WordPress. But if you feel like your budget doesn't allow to hire someone, you don't have the time, or you'd rather spend your time selling and going out there and networking versus trying to figure out your website, and you just are not as tech savvy, I think another platform might work best. And you have to weigh the costs and all of that, but ultimately it's what's going to be easier for you and that will really encourage you to blog and to follow up on keywords and do all that stuff versus what people are saying that is the best one. Ultimately, it comes down to, SEO really comes down to, are you providing value for people who are coming to your site? And if you are blogging, is it a blog that has enough keywords in it, that has enough text? Is it valuable? So am I going to bookmark that or share it with someone else because it is super, super helpful to me? So for example, back to an apple pie recipe, if it was the best recipe ever, I'm going to share that with other people. I'm going to bookmark it. I'm probably going to come back to it. And that's really what's going to help your SEO versus just having a pretty site and never really updating it because you are scared of the tech. The final thing that you should think about when starting out with your SEO is to do research and to track. So you can do some research on keywords using things like spyfoo.com, where you can go in and I think they have a free option where you can go in and spy on your competition, see what kind of keywords they're either paying for or trying to rank for organically, and then see how they would fit in. Create a Google AdWords account, and it's free. You just have to create an ad and then shut it off. But you can then use their keyword tools so that you can see the average monthly search, what the bid would be if you were to pay for it, and see the competition. And if it's a high competition, high bid, then you probably don't want to go after that one. But if it's, let's say, really good average monthly search, but a low competition, it could be something that you can start blogging about or just including into your SEO strategy. And I would say, if you don't do any research, just do some research please, but pick 5 of the top categories that you want to be known for. So whether that is, for example, apple pie recipes is one of them, then you're going to write a lot about apple pie recipes if you're a blogger. So make sure you know your 5 pillars, or go and do some research on keywords. Then you're going to want to track. So there's so much more that goes into this, a lot more, but you're going to just want to keep those keywords in mind, allocate them to certain pages, and just keep them in mind. And then you're going to want to track as you're working on your SEO. Let's say you did want to go the blogging route. Then let's say every 3 months you go into your Google Analytics and Google Search Console, look at the traffic, look at what keywords you're coming up for now, and see what is getting clicks, because you might be coming up for number 1 for a certain keyword but not really getting clicks. So you want to make sure that your strategy is still looking good and that you pivot. And you can't really pivot if you don't have numbers. So consistency and then knowing and tracking how you're doing is going to be crucial. To recap, if you don't do anything at all with your SEO, then make sure that your user experience is on point, because that is going to be super crucial. Even if you're only getting 100 people a month to your site, you can still convert those into paying clients if the user experience is great. If the user journey is super easy from when I land on your homepage to the point where I can sign up for a call with you to see about your services, that is really important versus just trying to throw a bunch of stuff at me when I'm on your site. So think about the user journey, the user experience. Make sure it's not annoying. Make sure it's easy to read, that images are great, that it is going at a good speed. Just keep those things, because they can come back to bite you. Even if you do a bunch of keyword research, if your user experience is not great, it could ding you. The second thing is, if you are starting a new platform or going to start a new site or redo your site on a new platform, think about how much tech you want to be involved in, if you have the budget for people to come in and help you with it, or if you're going to do it yourself, then is it better to test out a different platform that is simpler, looks simpler on the admin area, is organized a little bit better, versus something else like WordPress. So all of these platforms are really pushing for SEO, but ultimately it comes down to, are you providing value to the site visitor? And if the tech is what's holding you back, then maybe it's time to change and pivot until you can either hire someone or you feel comfortable doing it yourself. And finally, do your research and track your progress. So you want to do at least some small amount of research on what your competition is ranking for, and organically and paid, and what you want to rank for. And then you want to make sure you're tracking your progress so that you can make marketing decisions based off of numbers versus just kind of pulling things out from nowhere. That's it. SEO can be pretty scary. You can take a really deep dive into it, and you can really spend your entire life trying to rank. But as long as you keep a few main things in mind when you're working on your site, it should really help you and help your users and just make your website that much better. If you have any questions, make sure to comment below, go to roblesdesigns.com and leave a comment on the blog post, or follow us, like, subscribe, and share this with one other person. It's super, super helpful. And with that, I'll catch you next time.